again, everyone. This is the Half-Centennial Man. Welcome back to my channel. My apologies for the delay in uploading episode 2. But honestly, unlike most YouTubers, I have a real job. So, with that said, I will not be able to maintain a regular schedule regarding the upload of my videos, as I would only be able to do so when I have the time. I see some folks loading up content on a nearly daily basis here on YouTube. Yeah, that's not gonna happen here on my channel. Okay, so what am I gonna talk about in this episode? Well, as I've mentioned before in my last video, I think it's only fair that you get to know me a little bit. Last time I spoke about what I do for a living. This time, I want to talk about where I live. So, here we go. I live in New York. Yep, the Big Apple. I've lived here my whole life and moved around quite a bit from my original stomping grounds in the borough of Queens to a nice little beach community out on Long Island. As I did with my career in my last video, I want to take this opportunity to give my take on New York and share what it's been like for me thus far, especially for those of you considering coming to live here or just to visit. First of all, I want to remove the biggest misperception some folks have of New York. All of New York does not look like this. The state of New York has an incredibly diverse array of different types of environments. You have urban, suburban, bougie, and country, just to name a few. And yes, just like any place else, you do have some real sketchy neighborhoods as well. So do some research before coming here. And speaking about coming to New York, if you are planning on driving here, you really gotta bring your A game. Truth be told, New Yorkers are among some of the most ruthless and unforgiving drivers in this nation. It's not for the meek or faint of heart. Come on, we literally invented road rage. Mind you, I'm not referring to all of New York, just the urban areas. Well, mainly the 5 boroughs. And speaking of the 5 boroughs, I also want to remove another misperception of New York City specifically. The city of New York is not just the island of Manhattan. It encompasses all 5 boroughs. These boroughs are Queens, Brooklyn, Staten Island, Bronx, and Manhattan. Got it? Good. If not, there's always Google. So let's move on. If you are planning on visiting New York just to check out the sights, I would definitely suggest Manhattan. It truly is a happening place with lots to see and do, which is why a lot of tourists gravitate towards it. Unfortunately, for the same reason, both vehicle and pedestrian traffic is often horrible. However, again, for this same reason, Manhattan boasts many public transportation options, including buses, taxis, and a massive subway system. So let somebody else do the driving and save yourself the headache. So what's it like living in New York? Meh, it's alright. Honestly, I've outgrown it. Well, at least the urban part of it, hence why I moved out to Long Island. However, I don't think I'm quite done moving around just yet. As I've mentioned before, I live in a beach community out on Long Island. The downside with living in a beach community is dealing with all the out-of-towners during the summers. The majority of these out-of-towners come from those towns I was looking to get away from when I moved out here. These guys flood our roads, take all the parking, occupy every square inch of sand at the beach, and leave their trash when they've had enough. Well, it could be worse. I could still be living in Queens. Queens is my old stomping grounds. I will never forget that. However, I don't miss it at all, and you could not pay me enough to move back there. The noise, the trash, the occasional a-hole parked in my driveway. Nope, I don't miss any of that. Though it's not perfect, the neighborhood I'm in now is so much better. In a nutshell, I have mixed feelings about living in New York. There are days that I am grateful for the experience, and there are other days I just want to get the hell out. One thing I am extremely grateful for is having learned how to drive here. Honestly, because of my experience driving here, I have the confidence to drive anywhere. And I mean anywhere. Another thing I'm grateful for is the level of street smarts I've gained living in New York. Well, at least what I've learned growing up on the streets of Queens. Truth be told, if I had grown up out here on Long Island, I really doubt I would be as street smart as I've become. As the nature of most Long Island communities is pretty tame compared with their urban counterparts, most folks born and raised out here are kind of naive. Because of where they grew up, they have a tendency to do things urbanites would never consider doing, such as leaving their front doors unlocked, allowing their children to run around the neighborhood unsupervised at all times of the day and night, and leave their cars running as they run to grab something from a convenience store. Hell, I've seen some women leave their purses in their cars. These folks just don't believe anything bad will happen because of how safe they feel. It's as though they live in this impenetrable bubble where nothing bad can get through. However, what most of them don't realize is that evil has a tendency to travel, and you don't necessarily have to go to a bad neighborhood to have something bad happen to you. What really bothers me about some Long Islanders, aside from being so naive, is how they carry themselves with this misplaced sense of entitlement. Just because they can afford to live in certain high-end neighborhoods, they truly believe they are better than most folks. And because of this, they can be quite judgmental and rude. In addition to this, they also have a tendency to have the most unrealistic expectations. In my experience, though, I've seen this attitude more common amongst the women than the men. But now, what really makes me laugh are the men, especially the teenagers and the 20-something-year-olds. Even though they were born and raised in some of the most lily-white suburban neighborhoods and probably never set foot in real urban territory, some of these knuckleheads try to pass themselves off like they're real thugs. Do any of you remember Vanilla Ice? Well, what can I say? No matter the environment, because of all that testosterone coursing through their veins, every young buck wants to prove himself. The only difference between the suburban and the urban bucks is that when a suburban buck lands himself in jail, mom and dad can afford to post the bail. Word to your mother. Don't get me wrong. Even with all its flaws, I would still pick Long Island over Queens on any given day. My neighborhood is not overpopulated, traffic is good, no one parks in my driveway, I'm not picking up trash around my house, and the noise factor is way more tolerable. Before I made the move to Long Island, I was at my wit's end in Queens. It's funny, I had a neighbor tell me I would move back to Queens eventually, because, according to him, Queens was way more convenient with so many things within walking distance. Well, what he failed to realize is that convenience is by design, because traffic and parking sucks in Queens. On Long Island, yes, you gotta drive a lot for a lot of the most basic needs, but neither traffic nor parking is ever an issue. With that said, nope, I never regretted the move. Okay, I believe I've said enough about New York. Having said that, I'm gonna wrap this up now. If you found this video interesting, please show your support. Leave a like on this video and share it with others. Now, shut this damn thing off and go get some fresh air.